What's up, guys? Artem MMA Analysis here. Going to be talking about UFC 276, Adesanya versus Cannonier, and I cannot wait for this card. I've been excited for this card for so long. Arguably the most stacked pay-per-view of the year. Got even better now that Murphy versus Tate has been cancelled as well. I really cannot wait to watch this card. I'm so excited. As always, the show is brought to you by BetUS. You get a 125% sign-up bonus if you use the link in my description. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into my predictions. All the research has been done. Time to put some picks in the books. And in the first fight of the night, we're starting off with an all-time classic. We've got Jessica Rose Clark versus Julija Stoliarenko. As soon as this fight was announced, I knew we were going to get a banger. Now, in all seriousness, I'm picking Jessica Rose Clark to win, man. I think she's going to take Julija Stoliarenko down and win a decision like that. I think that I mean, I'm really hoping that she's going to be smart enough on top for Julija Stoliarenko to not submit her, because Julija Stoliarenko is actually quite good off bottom. She likes being on bottom as well, and she likes looking for arm bars. She looked for a couple of arm bars against Alexis Davis in the first round of their fight before losing the decision. Jessica Rose Clark recently showed no fight IQ whatsoever when she lost to Stephanie Egger by armbar submission in the first round. Julija Stoliarenko, she loses this one, she's going home. I don't think she's won in the UFC. She lost in her first run. She's 0-4 in the UFC right now. She's got a loss on the Ultimate Fighter as well. And it's not a good look for Julija Stoliarenko's career. She went on a good win streak. She got a win in Lethway, or like a championship in Lethway or something like that, which is like bare knuckle boxing. Kind of, but not really. And then the UFC signed her and she's gone 0-3 since then. I don't really know why she's still in the promotion, but this is actually a winnable fight for Julija Stoliarenko. I know one half of Fight Night Picks is picking her to win, but I'm going to be picking Jessica Rose Clark, man. I am worried about the fight IQ. She showed really bad fight IQ against Stephanie Egger, but I feel like what she's going to do is she's going to take the fight to the ground, and then as soon as she's on the ground and she's on top, she's going to do nothing. She's going to do nothing. She's going to lie there and do absolutely nothing. It's not going to be a very exciting fight. But with women's MMA, it does tend to be scored differently, and control time, for some reason, tends to be scored more than damage. So no matter really, if Julija Stoliarenko really does have a good couple of minutes, but Jessica Rose Clark takes her down for the rest of the 3 minutes of the round, I think Jessica Rose Clark, by the women's MMA scorecards recently, will win the round. So I think that we're going to be going with Rose Clark by decision. Stoliarenko being slept on, potentially. Like, she's not that big of an underdog. If she was like a huge underdog, maybe there's something there, but just don't beat women's MMA in general, in my opinion. Anything can happen. I'm going with Jessica Rose Clark to win this one here. And now, somehow on the early prelims, that's how stacked this card is. We've got Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis. This is a co-main event of a fight night, a featured fight of a really good fight night, any day of the week. And we've got him in the early prelims of this pay-per-view, which is crazy to me. Brad Tavares is a slight favourite on Tapology. I don't know if the odds have flipped. I feel like Dricus du Plessis might be a slight favourite right now. But I'm picking Dricus du Plessis to win this one here. I think I originally was on the Dricus du Plessis side with not a lot of confidence, and I still feel that same way, Dricus du Plessis, I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily know this, but at the start of his career, he was a primary grappler. He came into the UFC with a record of 14 wins, 2 losses. 9 of those wins by submission, 5 of those wins by KO. Now he's got 7 wins by KO because he's got 2 KOs in the UFC. But I feel like maybe people are fearing the grappling ability of Dricus du Plessis, which is why he's able to sneakily use his power shots and get these KOs that he is in the UFC. I don't really know. Maybe that's what they're worried about. They're worried about the takedown. They know a takedown's coming. They know Dricus du Plessis got really good ground game, so they're worried about that. And then Dricus du Plessis ends up knocking them out. Brad Tavares, on the other hand, very, very well-rounded fighter, and he's always been, or at least recently, he's been a litmus test for a lot of upcoming guys. Like he lost to Israel Adesanya when Israel Adesanya was on his way up. He lost to Edmund Shabazian when Edmund Shabazian was on his way up. And then he beat Antonio Carlos Jr., where I guess he was somewhat of a hyped prospect because he's got really good BJJ. And then he beat Omari Akhmedov as well, who was an older guy, but now he's been used again to fight a young up-and-coming guy. The last 2 are young up-and-coming guys he fought, he lost to. I feel like he is going to lose to Dricus du Plessis again. And I'm going Dricus du Plessis. I think I will go with a knockout, to be honest, in this one here. He's got a 100% finish rate. When you've got a 100% finish rate, it's pretty easy to kind of just predict a finish in that one there. But maybe Brad Tavares toughs it out. Maybe the fight goes the distance. I don't really think so. I think Dricus du Plessis is going to... I think he's going to mix it up a little bit, man. I think we just genuinely might see a bit of grappling out of Dricus du Plessis in this matchup here. Brett Tavares, he wants the fight on the feet. He's got really good kickboxing, but that's where he wants it. And Dricus du Plessis, if he's not having success on the feet against Brad Tavares, he's a very well-rounded fighter, and he's got that option. He's got that opportunity to get the fight to the ground and utilize his jiu-jitsu or his grappling game down there, because he does have 9 submission wins. Most of his wins are by submission. People don't necessarily talk about it too much. They talk about how good his striking is. But Dricus du Plessis is a very well-rounded fighter, and I like him for that. I like the fact that he's got options. A lot of people picking the KO, not many on the submission side, you know. Maybe if Dricus du Plessis by submission is like a crazy number, maybe that could be playable there, but du Plessis, you know, I think he's got a good chance of finishing this fight. Decision is actually somewhat likely as well. I don't know if he's still the dog, but if he is, I feel like that's actually a pretty good play, in my personal opinion. Moving on, man, we've got a banger of the night. Jessica Eye versus Macy Barbara. A fight which everyone's talking about, a fight which everyone's excited to watch. I feel like this is going to be a classic. I feel like we're going to get a banger here. Then we've got Jessica Eye, who is probably going to retire very soon. If this isn't her retirement fight, I really do feel like her retirement fight is coming soon. You know, she's almost 36 years old. She's on a little bit of a losing streak, albeit all decision. She hasn't really been knocked out, apart from the Valentina Shevchenko KO loss. But Macy Barber, you know, in my opinion, is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, but she's still a super hyped up prospect, you know. So she come in undefeated. She lost to Roxanne Modafferi. I mean, she fought her with an injury, to be fair, and then she lost to Alexa Grasso. But Alexa Grasso kind of just showed that there's levels to this, and Alexa Grasso really is a top contender right now. I feel like Macy Barber is a little bit of a step behind, but she's trying to get there, and I can respect it. She won a split decision over Miranda Maverick, which I don't think anyone on this planet, except for the 2 judges, thought she won, and then she recently did beat Montana De La Rosa. Montana De La Rosa is a pretty good fighter, though, to be fair. I feel like she's been given a veteran here to keep building up her name. I feel like there's still some hype around Macy Barber, nowhere near the hype, in my opinion, is when she was undefeated and talking about how she was going to be the youngest champion in the world and all of this other stuff. But yeah, I think Macy Barber should win. I feel like these 2 girls have somewhat similar styles. They want to kind of keep the fight up against the cage. They want to, I guess, kind of just bully each other, you know. If the fight's on the feet, it's not going to be very entertaining, in my opinion. I don't think a lot's going to go on. We're not going to see some very high-level striking out of these 2 girls. And even if the fight's grappling as well, I just feel like this fight just doesn't have UFC 276 written on it, you know. I'm just not that excited for it. I'm really not. But Macy Barber, she really should win this one here. She's about minus 250 right now to plus 200 Jessica Eye, which is pretty crazy in my opinion. But I think Macy Barber gets it done. I don't bet women's MMA. I never will. And I'm picking Macy Barber. But I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. But Barber by decision, I guess, is my pick anyway. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm picking Macy Barber. And the next fight is Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz, and I will be picking Andre Muniz to win this one by submission here. I think that the grappling game is just so much, they're just levels, you know. Andre Muniz is really one of the better grapplers that we've seen, or submission artists that we've seen in the 185-pound division. I know that Rodolfo Vieira does exist, but Andre Muniz is up there as well, in my opinion. I think he's a great grappler. I think he's got a great jiu-jitsu game as well. What he tends to kind of do is he likes to go for the rear naked choke. That, in my opinion, that kind of seems to be his go-to move. Like he was going for the rear naked against Jacare Souza. He slipped off and then ended up with the armbar. I think there's a very similar situation happened to Eric Anders as well. Yeah, he's on an armbar. He's actually on an armbar run right now. But I'm not picking him to win by armbar. I'm picking him to win by rear naked choke. I know everyone's going to be like, oh, but armbar's got to be his go-to move. No, I think Andre Muniz is going to be going for the rear naked choke here. That's what he was going for in Jacare Souza, and then he slipped off and ended up with the armbar, which is pretty cool. But Uriah Hall, you know, I feel like there's actually a dog shot at Uriah Hall. Call me absolutely insane, but I really do believe that Uriah Hall does actually have a chance in this fight. Andre Muniz's 4 losses are all by knockout. He's lost 4 times, and he's lost 4 times by knockout, you know. We haven't really seen him be too chinny in the UFC, but he's been knocked out before. Uriah Hall does hold power in the hands, and on his best today, probably could knock out Andre Muniz within the first round, to be fair, but that's probably his only path to victory, in my opinion. Andre Muniz is going to be looking for the takedowns, and when a grappler is looking for takedowns against the striker really doesn't tend to be as as good, I guess, in a way, because they're always worried about the takedown. It's always on their mind, so they don't really want to throw this. They don't want to throw this in case the kick gets caught, or if they just get taken down, they get caught off balance or something like that, you know. So I feel like Andre Muniz is going to be looking to grapple, and he's going to be looking to grapple early, and then when it gets to the ground, he's going to be using his jiu-jitsu. I think he will submit Uriah Hall. And then I think after that, he's probably going to fight like a top 10 opponent or something like that. I don't know if Uriah Hall's in the top 10 right now, but even if he is, I feel like he'll fight another top 10 opponent, because I feel like Andre Muniz, with his style, with his jiu-jitsu style, really could beat a lot of the good guys up at the top of 185. So I will be picking Andre Muniz to win this one. A lot of people are, understandably, in my opinion. Uriah Hall hasn't looked amazing. Recently he got beaten up a little bit by Sean Strickland. You know, he did beat Anderson Silva, which is cool. I mean, that wasn't really a fight against Christian Weidman either, but he's been on a good win streak. But I think it's time for Andre Muniz. I think it's time for the younger guy, albeit an old prospect. He's 32 and a half years old, albeit an old prospect. I think it's time that Andre Muniz does make something happen and gets the biggest win of his career. Arguably, you could argue that Jacare Souza is still a bigger win by submission over Uriah Hall, to be fair, but I do think Muniz is going to get a big win over Uriah Hall here, and I think that he should win by submission in the first or the second round, in my opinion. And moving on to the next scrap, man, we've got Donald Cerrone versus Jim Miller 2. In the first one, Donald Cerrone put on a pretty convincing victory over Jim Miller. He beat him up a little bit, knocked him out with a head kick. And now they're rematching 7 years later. That first fight was in 2014. That's a long time ago, man. And Donald Cerrone is sitting at a plus 180 underdog, which is so tempting to pick. But I am going with the minus 210, minus 225 favourite in Jim Miller here. I just think that Jim Miller, I just think he's a little bit less done, you know. Like, no disrespect to Cowboy Cerrone, he's taking the fight on short notice. He's cut weight twice in the last month to 155. That can't help his chin, which already does seem to be compromised a little bit with his older age. And yes, it's at 170, and he's going to be so much bigger than Jim Miller, because Jim Miller's 5'8" with a 6, and Cowboys are only 6'1". Jim Miller, you know, he's not even that big for a lightweight as well himself. But I just think that even on the short notice, I think that Jim Miller, he's been training for a full camp against Bobby Green, who in my opinion is a lot more dangerous than Donald Cerrone is, even at Donald Cerrone at 170. I think Jim Miller's going to get this one done. I mean, all of a sudden, you know, he's been knocking these guys out on that have been making their debuts, and I respect it. But Jim Miller is a really well-rounded skill set. He's got power in the hands to knock out these guys that are making their debuts, like Eric Gonzalez. He knocked out Nicholas Motta as well. Before that, he did lose to Vince Purcell, who's alright. Joe Salicki's alright, I guess. He beat Roosevelt Roberts by armbar. I mean, that win hasn't aged too well. But Jim Miller, you know, a couple of good KO wins. And Donald Cerrone's coming off that KO loss to Alex Morono in the first round. It was quite hard to watch, you know, like he kind of just took a couple of punches and just couldn't really take it anymore, you know. He got the draw with Nico Price, which is what it is. He got knocked out by McGregor, he got knocked out by Gaethje. Like, Donald Cerrone's taken some damage, man, recently. I mean, so is Miller, but I think Miller's gonna get the knockout here. I really do think that, I think the fight probably will stay on the feet. I've seen a lot of people thinking that Miller's going to gas in the first and Cerrone's going to come back in the second and the third, but even then, like, I just don't really understand how you can trust either of these two guys. You can't really trust them. I still can't trust Miller, even though he's coming off 2 wins. I can't really trust Cerrone, especially based off that last performance as well. The 2 weight cuts in the last month. I feel like the cards are more stacked on Miller. I feel like there's definitely a little bit of an advantage for Cerrone, the fight being at 170, because he's going to be so much bigger. But I think Jim Miller's gonna put on a good performance. I do think he's gonna finish Donald Cerrone. Either way, I don't think the fight goes the distance. I think Jim Miller should be able to get it done. And even if Jim Miller gets it done, like, is there a chance of a trilogy? Like, Donald Cerrone, he's got 48 fights under Zuffa. He wants to fight 50 fights under Zuffa. This will be his 49th. Like, will he fight Joe Lozon? Because he said he wants to fight Joe Lozon. But maybe if he loses to Jim Miller, would he be motivated to fight in a trilogy, potentially? Like, who knows with this one, man. But I'm going to be going with Jim Miller. I genuinely do think that Jim Miller will find the knockout on this one here. And, I mean, even then, he's not even that much younger than Donald Cerrone as well. But I do believe Jim Miller should get the knockout here. And going on through the card, we've got Ian Gary versus Gabe Green, and I apologise to everyone here, man. I've been picking all favourites so far, and I'm going with another favourite. I do have a couple of underdog picks on the card. They're coming on a little bit later, but Man, I'm picking in Gary to beat Gabe Green. You know, Gabe Green put on a good performance against Johan Lainez. I mean, like, Johan Lainez almost slept him and almost slept him bad in the first round, because that's what Johan is. But then Johan Lainez, you know, showed that he's got less cardio than my granddad, and he gassed out at the end of the first and the second. Like, he's got no cardio. I'm sorry, Johan. I know that you watch these videos or you watch these kind of videos. I'm sorry, Johan, but that cardio was not on point against Gabe Green at all. He gassed really bad, and Gabe Green capitalized and ended up finishing the fight after that. But I mean, all he really did was outlast Johan Lainez. You know, in Gary, I think he's looked better in Cage Warriors than he has the UFC. He didn't impress me when he beat Darian Weeks. He didn't impress me that much when he beat Jordan Williams. I know a lot of people were super impressed with that, but I wasn't really. Like, he was losing to Jordan Williams before he before he got the knockout. He's looked so much better against these regional scene guys. In my opinion, than he has in the UFC, and I don't even know if Gabe Green is going to be the opponent that he looks really good against, but in some ways you could almost compare Gabe Green to Darian Weeks. I feel like maybe he's a little bit better than Darian Weeks. You know, if they fought each other, I would be picking Gabe Green, for example. But it's just, he's another shorter guy. He's another guy that Ian Gary should be able to stand on the outside. He's only got 1 inch reach advantage here, but I feel like he should be able to stand on the outside, use his kickboxing, keep the fight on the feet. I'm thinking decision against Gabe Green here. Maybe Gabe Green, if he wants to win the fight, he's going to have to make it a bit scrappy. He's going to have to look for the clinch. He's going to have to look for the takedowns and that sort of thing. But Gabe Green has always kind of scared me a little bit. You know, this guy's had a lot of health problems in his career. I think he had something like a heart attack like very recently, which is very, very scary in my opinion. No, like, he beat Philip Rowe, and Philip Rowe's made a pretty good comeback since then. Lost to D-Rod. D-Rod kind of just outlasted Gabe Green. Kind of picked him apart from range. I feel like Ian Gary is probably going to follow that same game plan, you know. But good opportunity for Gabe Green to make a name for himself. I think Ian Gary wins this one. I think Ian Gary wins by decision. It's a weird one with Gary, though, because it's so obvious that UFC's trying to build him up as a name, but fans just haven't been able to get behind him. And I personally, like, I mean, I don't really like it when fans don't get behind these young fighters because they are the future, and it does make sense for them to be hyped up. But I personally am struggling to find Ian Gary as a likable character in the UFC. Like, you can call me a hater for that opinion all you want, but I personally am struggling to like him. I think his personality is just coming off a bit like Conor McGregor 2.0, except just a little bit less self-aware. You know, I'm just finding him a little bit unlikable so far. Maybe he'll grow up and maybe he'll grow onto me, but for now, I'm finding Gary quite unlikable as a character in the UFC. I feel like he's trying a little bit too hard to be that brash Irish fighter, be that Conor McGregor 2.0 sort of thing. And I mean, liking Gary, I'm picking him to win. I think he's a great fighter, but just as for the UFC trying to promote him, I feel like he's just doing too much. I feel like maybe if he toned it back a little bit, used a little bit more of himself, he wasn't just saying these weird things that he says every now and then that makes no sense and just kind of makes him look like a bit of a dick. I feel like he'll be so much more of a likable fighter, but for now I am struggling to find Ian Gary to be super likable. But I think he's going to win the fight. I think he's going to win a decision on the feet at range. I think he beats Gabe Green here. Maybe he finds a KO. I mean, Johan Lainez did find a really good knockdown against Gabe Green. Maybe Ian Gary can do the same thing. Maybe he's going to look to make a statement here. I think Ian Gary should win the decision in this one here. Okay, so I said I had a couple underdog picks coming up, and this is my first one. I am picking Bryan Barberena here. I think this fight is also going to be on the main card as well, so I feel like the belt order and Tapology isn't actually in order, but I'm just going off the Tapology order, just by the way, guys. But Bryan Barberena is sitting at the moment, plus 101 worst value, minus 110 worst value, actually. Maybe the line's going to flip here, but at the moment he is the plus 100 or so underdog. Robbie Lawler is a slight favourite. And I am picking Bryan Barberena to win this one. I do believe that he is going to come home with the win. It's so tough though, you know, because I feel like both of these guys, including Bryan Barberena, are past their prime, you know. Bryan has had so many injuries himself, he's had so many setbacks. You know, he's taken a bit of damage in his career. He was in a war against Matt Brown only 2 months ago. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's recovered from that 110%. But like he's been in there with some good fighters. He's been knocked out before. He's lost to some guys that aren't really that great, like Jason Witt, to be honest. But Bryan Barberena, you know, he does kind of come to fight. I feel like the amount of excitement that he brings to a fight, in my opinion, is a little bit overrated, and I feel like people are gonna hate on me for that. But I don't get excited for a Brian Barberena fight like most people do. I just don't really understand the hype behind him. I don't really understand the belief that he's coming to bring a scrap. You know, I don't really understand that kind of hype behind him. I genuinely have never really felt that way. But Robbie Lawler, man, like, I was so excited to see Robbie Lawler fight Nick Diaz, and I'm so sorry, guys. But Robbie Lawler made me a lot of money on that night because I picked Robbie Lawler to finish, to win by finish or win inside the distance. I think that was like plus 200, and I actually had, like, I don't really bet money because I don't actually have money to lose. But I bet a lot of money that night. Like, I bet small bets every now and then, but like I threw down on Robbie Lawler inside the distance, and I'm sorry, guys, but he cashed for me big time. You know, I'm sorry, Nick Diaz, but I was confident in that pick. I was really confident there. But before that, you know, he lost to Neil Magny. He lost to Kobe Covington. I mean, this is the kind of competition Colby Covington has faced, by the way. I don't think people really recognise that. Lost to Ben Askren, lost to RDA. Like, he hasn't really won a fight apart from that Nick Diaz fight in a long time. And even in the Nick Diaz fight, I feel like the Nick Diaz fight is actually the fight you've got to look at when you're trying to tape study for Brian Barberena. And I don't feel like Robbie Lawler was landing with a lot of power. You know, I feel like if he's going to beat Brian Barberena, he's going to have to get the respect of Brian, because Brian Barberena is going to come to brawl, and he is going to be coming forward, and he is going to be throwing with power, and I feel like he's going to be throwing with more power than Robbie Lawler is, so I don't know if Robbie Lawler is actually going to earn the respect of Brian Barberena on the feet, and I think if Brian Barberena doesn't respect Robbie Lawler on the feet, he's going to be throwing with his own power himself. He's not really going to be too scared of what's coming back. And yes, you could say, oh, that's when Robbie Lawler could get a knockout, but I just don't. I personally, at the moment, this video could age so poorly, and I would be happy if it did, because I do want Robbie Lawler to win, I really do. But he's 40 years old, and I just don't believe that Robbie Lawler is going to be able to knock out Brian Barberena. I feel like Brian Barberena could knock out Robbie Lawler. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it does go the full 3 rounds. But I do think Brian Barberena is going to get the better of Robbie Lawler on the feet, and he's going to win a decision that way. To my surprise, I feel like a lot more people were going to be picking Lawler, but they're not. Okay, so I'm picking Brian Barberena here. I think he does win a decision. At the moment, he's the underdog. Potentially, when the fight comes around, the line could flip. But either way, you know, I really want Robbie Lawler to win, man. I really do want Robbie Lawler to win, but I've got to side with Barberena on this one here. I feel like both guys are at the end of their careers as well. Maybe not Brian Barberena, maybe he's got a couple of years left in him, but the reality is Brian Barberena's been injured so many times. I feel like I don't really know how many fights he's got left in him before those injuries catch up, you know, and I feel like those injuries from Robbie Lawler in the past have caught up to him now. So I feel like it's a very winnable fight for Barberena. I'm picking Barberena to win this one here. And moving up to what is the featured prelim on the Tapology card, but I believe is actually going to be the featured prelim of the night, and Robbie Lawler versus Brian Barberena is going to be on the main card. We've got Brad Riddell versus Yalen Turner. Oh, that fills me with pain, guys. It hurts my soul. You know, I'm from New Zealand. I don't know if you guys have picked that up from my accent at all. I'm from New Zealand. I do have a very big New Zealand bias. You know, I've picked Brad Riddell to win every fight that he's been in the UFC. I picked him to beat Rafael Viziev, but I feel like that was a very justified prediction. I really do believe that. He was very competitive in that fight as well. I feel like he was on his way to losing a decision before he did get finished, unfortunately. But if we look at the odds here, Brad Riddell sitting plus 120, Yalen Turner minus 140 at worst value, minus 120 at best value. I am picking Yalen Turner because he's a weight bully, man. Like, I know Yalen Turner, I know you watch this video. I know you're watching this video right now, or at least if Yalen Turner's not watching this video, I know his manager or his mum is watching this because they do watch my videos. So shout out to them. I do appreciate it. But Yalen Turner must walk in the cage so much heavier than 155. He's going to walk in the cage a lot heavier than Brad Riddell. You know, like 110% he's going to be heavier than Brad Riddell when he walks in the cage. And he's huge. He's 6'3". He makes it to 155. And his last loss was to Matt Frivola, but since then he's made so many improvements. He beat Joshua Culibao, albeit Joshua Culibao's a little dude, he's at 145, but that fight and win has aged pretty well so far. He beat Brock Weaver, is what it is. Brock Weaver isn't amazing, to be honest, but he beat Urus Medics, but Urus Medics is also quite good, you know, in my opinion, but he was untested, and then he beat Jamie Malaki, and I feel like Jamie Malaki, man, that's such a good win for Yalen Turner. Yes, he did have a glove grab in there at one point, which is somewhat controversial, but even before that, Yalen Turner was looking really good on the feet. He's also really well-rounded. He can take it to the ground if he wants to, like he did against Urus Medics, and he can get the submission if he wants. I feel like the fight is obviously going to play out on the feet to start with. You know, that's where Bradley Riddell wants it. And I do feel like the pure kickboxing is going to go on the Brad Riddell side. But there's just such a size discrepancy here. Jalen Turner's 6'3", Brad Riddell is 5'7". There's about a 4-inch reach advantage for Jalen Turner as well. Yeah, man, like, it's a tough one. Like, I want to pick Brad Riddell. I'm from New Zealand, but I am picking Jalen Turner to win this one. And we've seen Brad Riddell get knocked out before. There's a chance that he does get a knockout here. I feel like just inside the distance would be safe because Jalen Turner is well rounded. He could find the submission. So give me Jalen Turner inside the distance. Riddell, you know, maybe if he survives the first round, he could make a comeback. But Riddell is either KO or decision, in my opinion. Jalen Turner is just inside the distance. I feel like Turner has got options, and you guys know I like guys with options. I like guys that can finish the fight inside, finish the fight on the feet, or finish the fight on the ground, or use grappling when they need to, or just a little bit more well-rounded. You know, Brad Riddell is just a really good kickboxer that is now in MMA, and he's not really. There's the truth about most of City Kickboxing guys. I'd say Kai Kara France is a pretty good exception. He's probably got some of the best defensive grappling in the 125-pound division right now. But aside from that, you know, Brad Riddell, he's just a really good kickboxer. I feel like he's going to have his moments against Jalen Turner, but I feel like Jalen Turner is going to finish him eventually, and I'm going to pick second round. I think the fight probably leaves the first, but Jalen Turner, I think he's going to take over, man. I really do believe Jalen Turner is going to find a finish, and it hurts my soul to say it, but Jalen Turner and his team have been supported off my channel in the past, so shout out to them. And Brad Riddell and his team, like, where's the support, guys? I'm from New Zealand, you know, but I haven't had any support from Brad Riddell's team, so. But no, anyway, that doesn't matter. That's not part of the pick. Yeah, now Jalen Turner, I do believe he's gonna win. I think majority of people think he's gonna win. I'm seeing like huge like 80% predictions for Jalen Turner on Instagram, but I'm seeing like 49% on Tapology. That's pretty crazy, but I think the size is going to make the difference here. I think Jalen Turner does win. Now let's get it, man. Sean O'Malley, he's proven to be a pretty reliable guy to kick off a main card of a pay-per-view with a bang, and I think he's going to do it again. I'm picking Sean O'Malley to win this fight. I understand the Sean O'Malley decision pick, and I was on Sean O'Malley decision for a very long time until about a couple of days ago when I just decided, you know what, I'm going to pick Sean O'Malley by knockout. And I do believe he could get it done, you know, like, yeah, the third round win over Chris Moutinho hasn't aged that well considering Guido Canetti knocked him out in the first round. He took a few rounds to knock out Thomas Almeida, but he ended up knocking out Julian Paiva very early on in the fight, and he didn't make Julian Paiva look as good as what he is. You know, Julian Paiva's a good fighter, and he had a competitive fight with Sergey Morozov, so that just begs the question, just how good is Sean O'Malley? And my answer is, I think Sean O'Malley is very good, and I think he's definitely good enough to beat Pedro Munoz. Maybe he beats Pedro Munoz by decision. In fact, that's probably the more likely outcome, but Pedro Munoz has never been finished ever. All 7 of his losses are by decision, and I'm picking O'Malley by knockout. I do think that he's gonna get it done, man. And the thing about Sean O'Malley is, even if the fight does get to the mat, you know, he has spent a lot of time grappling and practicing grappling, because when he got that suspension after making like his UFC debut, sort of, and he spent a lot of time grappling. You know, he only had 3 grappling matches, but he spent all of 2019 grappling Takanori Gomi, Hector Lombard, and Gilbert Melendez in these Quintet Ultra tournament that he had, you know, so, or not all of 2019, but he spent some of it anyway. And I think that's pretty cool, you know, he's got that in his back pocket, he's got time spent grappling in his back pocket, which is cool. But Sean O'Malley, primarily striker, really good striker, really underrated striker. I feel like a lot of people know him for his personality, that he's a really good fighter himself, man. Sean O'Malley really is a good fighter, and he really is, as I said, a very good striker. I don't know how many times I said that in the video, way too many, but Pedro Munoz, man. Pedro Munoz has fought some legends and he's never been finished by any of them. That's why a win for Sean O'Malley over Pedro Munoz will look so good. Like he beat Jimmy Rivera, he also beat Cody Garbrandt, but he lost to Aljamain Sterling, current champion, lost to Frankie Edgar, former champion at lightweight, lost to Jose Aldo, former featherweight champion, lost to Dominic Cruz. Like Pedro Munoz has been in there with some of the greatest fighters ever and some of the biggest names in the sport, you know, and he hasn't been finished by them. And Sean O'Malley is another big name, a big up and coming name, not a guy that's been around for the longest period of time like his Pedro Munoz has, or Pedro Munoz's previous opponents have, but Sean O'Malley's striking, he's really good on the feet. He's 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Pedro Munoz throws a lot of leg kicks, and we have seen leg kicks been very effective against Sean O'Malley in the past. I would say specifically against Chito Vera, where he has had and he's also had leg injuries in the past as well himself. So maybe Pedro Munoz could really look to chop at the legs of Sean O'Malley. But I do think that Pedro Munoz is going to lose the fight. Sean O'Malley by KO or decision. I'm leaning the KO side, man. Pedro Munoz has never been knocked out, but Sean O'Malley, I feel like if there's someone that's going to do it, it's going to be a young up-and-coming guy. And Sean O'Malley is the young up-and-coming guy that Pedro Munoz has been given. And I feel like maybe there's a good chance he gets it done. He's got a huge reach advantage. He's got a big height advantage as well. He's going to be big in that cage, man. He's got really good front kicks. He's got really good hands. He's just got really good everything, you know. And Sean O'Malley, man, I do believe he's going to get the KO. I'm impressed with his skill set. A lot of people think of him as a personality, but this guy is a good fighter. Sean O'Malley's a really good fighter, in my opinion. So let's see how it goes. And now we've got Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira, a fight that is getting talked about a lot, a fight that a lot of people are really excited for, including myself. Sean Strickland is a slight underdog at the moment, and I'm picking him as that slight underdog. I feel like when the fight was announced originally, I was on Alex Pereira to get the win. I did think that Alex Pereira was going to win that one, but now that I kind of think about it a little bit more, I see the training footage. I feel like the MMA guru is the one that really brought it to light. Sean Strickland's really been training his wrestling, man, and I feel like he's training his wrestling for a reason. I think he's going to look to wrestle Alex Pereira. And Alex Pereira, he has been taken down in the UFC. Bruno Silva took him down twice. Andreas Michailidis took him down twice. Yes, Alex Pereira showed really good takedown defense in both of those fights, but I believe that Sean Strickland, you know, he's going to be a better wrestler. He's going to be a better grappler than those two guys. And I feel like when a title shot is on the line, Sean Strickland, I don't think he's going to care if he wins a boring wrestling-based decision. I don't think he's going to care because he's going to get the mic afterwards and say something absolutely insane. But the point is, I feel like when a title shot is on the line and you're fighting for a title, or a title shot, sorry, you're not going to try and just put on the most exciting performance for the fans, and you're not going to try and strike with Alex Pereira. You're going to fight, and you're going to fight to win, so you can get a title shot against Israel Adesanya, who I believe wins the main event. Just spoiled the main event for you guys, but yeah, the winner of this fight is going to fight Izzy. You know, I know everyone wants Alex Pereira to win because everyone wants to see Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya in the UFC, and I think that would be such a good fight, and a hard fight to predict as well. But I do believe Sean Strickland, you know, he's the easiest fight for Alex Pereira in the top 5. And they've really rushed him to a title shot here. They really have. But Alex Pereira is a really good kickboxer. But the reality is, he was fighting kickboxing only 1-2 years ago. You know, he hasn't been training MMA. He hasn't been training wrestling for that long. And Sean Strickland, you know, he's been training wrestling for a lot longer than Alex Pereira has. And I do believe that he's got better wrestling than Alex Pereira. I think he's going to be better than the takedown defense of Alex Pereira. I think he's going to get the fight to the mat. And I think when it gets to the mat, I think he's going to keep it there. And I think he is going to win a decision based on like ground and pound and sort of control and just keeping Alex Pereira on his back. I think he's going to fight a smart fight. And I think he's going to call out Israel Adesanya after that. Yes, I know everyone will be like, oh, it was boring. It was a wrestling based fight, you know, and he was too scared to stand with Alex Pereira, but the reality is everyone's too scared to stand with Alex Pereira, unless your name is Bruno Silva and you're just an absolute savage. But yeah, I don't think Sean Strickland is going to be dumb enough to strike with Alex Pereira. I really don't believe he's going to do that. I think Sean Strickland's going to fight a smart fight, and I think he's going to take Alex Pereira down to the ground and win a decision. Pereira, if he wants to win this one, he's going to have to get a knockout. I see a knockout from Pereira, I really do. And I really want, you guys got to understand, I really want Izzy versus Pereira because that would be such a good fight and the build-up would be insane. But I'm just got to look at it from my perspective. I do believe Sean Strickland's going to get the win here. He's got a few submission wins in his career. He's got 4 submission wins, I believe. So he has won by submission before. I think he's going to play it smart. I think he's going to play the really safe and smart game on top of Alex Pereira, and he's going to win a decision. A grinding, wrestling-based decision in a smart fight to beat the striker, to beat the kickboxer who hasn't been training MMA for that long, and earn himself a title shot in Sean Strickland. And now we move on to the third fight of Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. I do believe that Alexander Volkanovski did beat Max Holloway in that second fight. I do believe he beat him in the first fight. I don't even understand how the first fight is is debated. That was a clean sweep for Volkanovski. He won that fight 50-45. But moving on, we're gonna get the final third fight. And I'm picking Alexander Volkanovski to win again. I picked him to win the first fight. I picked him to win the second fight. And I'm going to pick him to win the third fight. I do believe he goes 3-0 over Max Holloway. And this is a legacy killer. If you're Max Holloway and you lose to Volkanovski 3 times, that's a legacy killer. That really is, honestly. It would really suck for Holloway if he lost 3 times. Because no matter how much Max Holloway did in the featherweight division after this, and he's lost the 3 times to Volkanovski, Volkanovski is always going to be that shadow over his career, and so he really needs to beat Alexander Volkanovski in this one here. But I just think Volkanovski's a bad matchup for Max Holloway. People talk about Max Holloway's striking offense, which is really, really good, yes, but his striking defense does leave a lot to be desired. The guy has absorbed the most significant strikes in the UFC history. I believe he's absorbed something like 1,900 significant strikes, and he's never been knocked down apart from when Dustin Poirier knocked him down, but he ended up kind of falling up against the cage, and he didn't really go down. But that's kind of crazy, he's got a crazy chin on him, but I feel like there's a point in time when that chin doesn't work as it used to, and I don't believe it's going to happen against Volkanovski. I do believe Volkanovski wins, and I do believe Volkanovski does win by finish, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Max Holloway, really, really good striker. So is Volkanovski too, to his credit as well, but really good output. I believe he's landed the most significant strikes in UFC history as well, with a crazy number. He's got some crazy records for strikes landed in a single fight. And but he's absorbed a lot of strikes as well, and that's what concerns me. And even then, against Yair Rodriguez, it comes down to this Yair Rodriguez fight for me. He went to war with Yair Rodriguez, and he took a lot of damage in that fight, He fought Calvin Kattar. He took a bit of damage against Calvin Kattar as well. Calvin Kattar did land damage on Max Holloway, and I don't think people really talk about that too much. Yes, Holloway put on the most dominant performance I think anyone has ever seen, but he did get cracked a little bit at the start of the fight. He did take some damage there. He took some damage against Yair. In fact, at points, if it wasn't for the takedowns, Max Holloway potentially would have lost that fight on the feet with Yair Rodriguez. And Yair Rodriguez was coming back after like a 2-year layoff or something absolutely insane like that. So I think that Alexander Volkanovski has made more improvements since the first 2 fights than Max Holloway has. He looked incredible against Chan Sung Jung, who did take it on I think 6 weeks notice or something like that. But he looked really good against Brian Ortega. He finished Brian Ortega in the 3rd round. If the referee actually did his job, he finished Brian Ortega at the end of the 3rd, because Brian Ortega needed his cornerman to lift him up onto a stool, and that's TKO win for Volkanovski. But hey, it is what it is. I do believe that this is for everything. This is for potentially the greatest featherweight of all time right here. I think it's still going to be Jose Aldo, even with a win by Volkanovski. I feel like if Volkanovski beat Holloway and then beat Josh Emmett, then you could call him that. I still think that Jose Aldo will be the greatest, even after this fight, to be honest. But this fight is huge. 2 of the most skilled fighters on the planet right now. 2 of the most well-rounded fighters on the planet. I do believe Alexander Volkanovski is the most well-rounded fighter on the entire roster, which is crazy, but I do believe that. I do believe that is true. And Max Holloway, really good striker. So many records, and I do give him his respect. But there does come to a point where I've just got to kind of pick Volkanovski, because I think he's going to win. And I do believe he's going to win by finish, guys. I really do. But I don't think he's going to win by KO on the feet. I think Volkanovski's ground and pound is just so brutal that he's going to finish Max Holloway with ground and pound at the end of the 3rd or the end of the 4th round. I think he's going to use his wrestling. I do believe Alexander Volkanovski will be taking down Max Holloway in this fight, and I do believe he will be looking to ground and pound against Max Holloway. And Volkanovski's ground and pound is brutal, man. And I think he's going to look to use it. I really do. I don't really know why, but there's just a sneaking suspicion in me that Volkanovski's going to look to use ground and pound against Holloway. And even then on the feet, Volkanovski's got more power than Max Holloway. Max Holloway hasn't finished anyone since 2018, and that was Brian Ortega. And even then, he didn't really finish him. That was just in between rounds, you know. So we know that Volkanovski's got way more finishing ability than Max Holloway does. And I'm picking him. I think he's going to put a stamp on this trilogy, you know. If the fight goes 5 rounds again and Volkanovski wins a decision, I don't think people are still going to be that happy with him. I feel like he's got to put a stamp on this one. I'm feeling ground and pound TKO for Volkanovski at the end of the third or at the end of the fourth. And here's another one as well. Holloway was slowing down at the end of that Yair Rodriguez fight as well. Volkanovski, yes, he was slowing down at the end of the Ortega fight, but that's because Volkanovski has used all of his energy beating the shit out of Brian Ortega. Like, let's be real. Like, he beat Brian Ortega up bad, you know, and he just spent all of his energy doing that. You know what I mean? But hey, I'm picking Volkanovski. I'm so confident in Volkanovski to get this one done, man. I know Holloway's got a lot of fanboys, and even then, like, I'm gonna get so much dislikes for this. I don't really understand why a lot of people follow Max Holloway. I don't really understand the hype behind him. Like whatsoever. I don't see Max Holloway fighters coming up, and I don't really get that excited for it. But that's just me. Also, Volkanovski's got a longer reach than Holloway, even though he's 5 inches shorter. I didn't even realize that. Okay. Does Max have short arms, or does Volkanovski just have really long arms, or is it a combination of them both? I feel like it's a combination of both, but yeah, I think Volkanovski's going to land with more power. I think he's going to look to use the takedowns as well, and I do believe he's going to also look to ground and pound. As I was saying before, I think we're going to see ground and pound TKO at the end of the third or at the end of the fourth. And I think we're going to see a beating. I think we're going to see Volkanovski put a beating on Max Holloway here. But imagine if Volkanovski just beats the shit out of Max Holloway for 5 rounds, and Max Holloway just gets like the most bullshit decision win ever. Oh, that'd be so bad. Anyway, I think Volkanovski's going to beat the crap out of Holloway. I really do believe that. No disrespect to him, but I think Volkanovski's Max Holloway's nightmare matchup, and it's just a shame that he's met him at the top, you know what I mean, and not like towards the end of his career or whatever. I think Volkanovski's going to win. I think he's going to put on a dominant performance. I'm really confident in it. Give me Volkanovski. Alright, let's get it, guys. The final fight of the night, we've got Israel Adesanya taking on Jared Cannonier in the headliner of the UFC 276 pay-per-view. I feel like the people's main event is Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 3, and I feel like that's the fight that people are probably most looking forward to. And we've just got this one on top of all of that, which is really exciting. But Israel Adesanya, the fans are starting to turn against him. Since he started to put on quote-unquote boring performances, people aren't really getting behind Izzy like they used to, you know. People aren't really... Or maybe it's because he lost. Maybe it's because he's lost before. Maybe that's a difference maker as well. But I think Israel Adesanya is definitely going to get the win in this fight here against Jared Cannonier. And I think he's going to put a statement on, because people, as I said, are turning against Israel Adesanya. They're seeing him as a boring champion. But the one thing you've got to respect about Adesanya is, though, he's an active champion. This is his third fight in a year. He only fought 4 months ago as well. And I feel like even then, after he defends his belt against Jared Cannonier, he's definitely going to fight again before the end of the year. So I feel like there's something that you can respect about Izzy, is that he's an active champion. And I do think he's going to win. I think he's going to win by knockout here. I feel like he has to win by knockout. If Israel Adesanya stands at the end of Jared Cannonier's range and leg kicks him, body kicks him, and jabs him for 5 rounds, the fans won't be happy. The fans are not going to be happy. Israel Adesanya, he needs to maybe put himself in a risky situation to please the fans. And I think he's going to get a knockout. I do believe he's going to get a knockout over Jared Cannonier. As for Cannonier, though, he could knock out Adesanya as well, but I do believe that Adesanya's kickboxing is just going to be a little bit too good, to be honest. You know, Israel Adesanya's had a 75-5 kickboxing career before MMA. I think he went 5-0 as a professional boxer as well. And now he's 22-1 in MMA himself, and he showed really good kickboxing in the UFC. Jared Cannonier is a powerhouse. If he steams forward and throws combos, maybe something will land, but I think Israel Adesanya is going to be smart enough to, as I said, stay out of range from Cannonier, which I guess the fans aren't going to want. But I feel like at the same time, he's also going to be able to land his counter shots like he did to knock out Robert Whittaker. I feel like mainly was a good counter punch, but he's also knocked out Paulo Costa as well. And I think he's going to get another one, man. I feel like the Yoel Romero fight really sent his career down. He beat Paulo Costa, which put it up, lost to Jan. Beat Vittori by somewhat boring decision. I guess that's kind of stagnated it. And then it dived when he beat Robert Whittaker by a boring decision. So people don't really want to see Adesanya fight anymore. And he's going to have to get a KO if people really want to see him fight. And I feel like the fight that would save Adesanya's career would be a win over Alex Bahia. I really do believe that. But I'm going with Israel Adesanya here. I don't think the fight does go 5 rounds. I do believe Adesanya finds a finish in this one here. I really hope he finds a finish in this one here. I really hope he doesn't just beat Cannonier by boring decision, man. I know it's a game plan. I know it's a technical fight, but it's just not what the fans want to see. And fans are turning against Adesanya for fighting in that style. So I'm picking Adesanya to win. I'm picking him to win by KO. I really hope that he gets a KO and he wins this one here against Jared Cannonier. And we get Adesanya versus Bahia. That's what we want to see. And I'll see you in the next one.